Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Sports Mo's Football Shorts. I'm Barney Corkhill. I'm here with our football editor, Matt Law. At least I think that's Matt Law. Barely recognise him with his haircut now. But we're here to talk about game week 35 of the Premier League season. Time is running out for me. Matt is now 27 points ahead with not many points left to play for. So I need to pull it out of the bag big time to pull off a great comeback. We'll start tonight on Friday night with Leicester versus Newcastle. Leicester drew with Southampton last time out in a minor blow to their top four hopes, but still very much in their hands, that race. And Newcastle were beaten by Arsenal last time out, but victory here would pretty much guarantee safety. So it's a big game at both ends of the table. How do you see it going, Matt?
Yeah, it's a really big game, isn't it? I think, obviously, you mentioned Newcastle. They're not, where they are on the table. They obviously dropped down to 17th now, haven't they? But 9 points ahead. And I still don't think even, if they lose their next four games, I would still be astounded if they went down, because Fulham would have to do so much. But I just think this is a huge, huge game for Leicester. On paper, you look at it, you think Leicester, Newcastle, just, not too big a game. But I think I know Leicester got some big games coming up, but that's the point. I think this game is monumental for Leicester. You talk about Manchester United away, obviously, then Chelsea twice, FA Cup final, league, and Tottenham in the league as well. It's such a difficult finish for Leicester that if they were to pick up 3 points here, you just feel like moving on to 66 points, a big gap to West Ham at that stage. Obviously, Chelsea as well, it'd be a nice gap to them. And I just think if Leicester could pick up a win here, it would, really cement their spot. There was talk of maybe, it would be top three, if Arsenal were to go and, win the Europa League and Chelsea Champions League, obviously it's top three and stuff, maybe make only good enough to make the Champions League next season, because obviously you can only have 5 English teams in it, but obviously Arsenal are out of that now, so top four will be fine, and I expect Leicester to finish in the top four, to be honest. I think last time out, obviously against Southampton, was disappointing. It was a disappointing result against the Southampton side and aren't doing too much, if we're honest, are we, at the moment. They're sort of bumbling along. But yeah, like I say, I think it would be huge for Leicester to go and win here. Newcastle obviously would not be mathematically safe, as I mentioned, if they were to win, but it'd be 12 points clear of Fulham, leaving Fulham needing to win the next 4, and hope Steve Bruce's sides obviously lose their next 3. So, and you talk about Fulham have won 5 games all season. So I think Newcastle will be fine, like I say, even if they were to get beaten here. Last time out, obviously, it's been a good period for Newcastle, but poor last time out. I thought against Arsenal, Arsenal side that weren't exactly flying, were they? They would come off the back of the Villarreal defeat, and obviously then went out, and it was a poor performance from Newcastle. But boost for Leicester in terms of looks like Johnny Evans is going to be okay, isn't he? He was a slight doubt. I think he's been nursing a foot problem for a little while now. Looks like he's going to be fine. Obviously, Justin Barnes still out. Newcastle, no Fabian Schär, that couldn't overturn the red card. A few obviously still out apart from that. But, fancy some maximums around Wilson will play up front. Leicester's side's pretty easy to pick. Now Evans has been past fit, Maddison behind Iheanacho and Vardy. And yeah, I think this would be a tight one, to be honest. I'm not expecting a particularly, comfortable win, because Newcastle, as we know, they can be difficult to beat, certainly recently. But I do expect Leicester to win. I've just gone 2-1 Leicester.
Yeah, I'm back in Leicester as well. I've gone 2-0 in this one. I was close to going pretty tight because, as you say, Newcastle have been good in recent weeks. But I think the defeat to Arsenal, as you say, was a disappointing result. And I think the pressure is now off their shoulders a bit. As you say, it'd be a big surprise if they got dragged back into it. Obviously, if they go lose here and then lose the next few, and Fulham do manage to string a run of wins together, then it could all come down to that final day of the season, Fulham versus Newcastle. But I mean, it's very unlikely for that to happen. As you say, Wolves would almost need to double their win tally for the entire season so far for that to happen. So, Fulham would. So a really difficult task for Fulham to stay up, and Newcastle, a win here, I think, that's them safe, because you're not gonna. Fulham aren't going to win every game remaining in this season, and it'd probably come down to goal difference then, even if they did, and Newcastle lost all theirs. So I think a win for Newcastle. But as we say, this is going to be a very tough game. I think last time out, Leicester would have been really disappointed with that draw away to Southampton, particularly with Southampton going down to 10 men. Controversial red card for sure. But from there, Leicester would have expected to go on and win. So to drop 2 points, would have been a big blow to them. But as you say, this is a really good chance for them to bounce back in a game everyone will be expecting them to win. As you say, the 3 games they close the season with are really difficult in the Premier League, and then obviously the FA Cup final in there. Safe. They'd then be 8 points clear of 5th place, and 5th place would only have 12 points left to play for. So you'd have to say then Leicester would be in a very, very strong position to clinch that top 4 spot, which they deserve. And as I say, I think I'm backing them to get it. Newcastle have been better, but the pressure's off them a little bit more now. Leicester, the pressure's still very much on them. They need another win, maybe another 4, 6 points, maybe, to go and get that top 4 spot once and for all. So I'm backing them to get 3 of those, as you are. I've gone for 2-0 to Leicester in this one. Saturday lunchtime kickoff is Leeds versus Tottenham. Leeds beaten by Brighton last time out. Bit of a surprise result after such a good run of results against Man City, Liverpool and Manchester United. Not losing any of them, to go and lose to Brighton was really disappointing. Tottenham last time out, a 4-0 win against Sheffield United. Gareth Bale's hat-trick kept them right in the top 4 race. How do you see this one going, Matt?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, isn't it? As you mentioned, last time out, Tottenham had to win, didn't they, really, to stand any chance of finishing in the top 4. I still think would be very surprised if they were in there at the end of the season. They're going to have to win all their games, really, aren't they? They're going to put 4 wins on the board. They're capable of doing it. Go win here, beat Wolves and Villa at home, and obviously go to Leicester on the last day. Leicester at that stage, might be, might fancy that they'll be cemented in the top 4. So it's not impossible, but there's just too many teams, I think, above them that are, better, more consistent. Obviously, Liverpool have got a game in hand now on Tottenham. When Liverpool win that, they go above them. Everton not completely out of it. Still be very surprised with Everton. But yeah, Leeds, obviously, last time, as you mentioned, came to an end. Their little unbeaten run, didn't it, 2-0. But still been a fantastic season, isn't it, for Leeds? Won 14 games. I know they've lost 15, but to win 14 games, a newly promoted club is outstanding, and they've got quite a kind finish to the season. Leeds, Burnley, Southampton, West Brom. So similarly, they'll be looking to finish in the top half. I don't think they're going to catch, top 8, but they could finish 9th this season, which would be absolutely fantastic, wouldn't it, for Leeds? I think, obviously, Marcel Bielsa has said that he's still got a couple of injury doubts. Rafinha and Calvin Phillips, arguably, their 2 best players are still. I think they're going to wait till the latter stages, maybe even, make a decision Sunday morning whether they might play. They've both been out recently. Obviously, Liam Cooper's back for Leeds, been suspended. So Helder Costa out for the season, though. So that's a blow for them. But Tottenham, injury situation's pretty good at the moment. Looks like Lo Celso's going to be fine. He had a knock last time out against Sheffield United. But yeah, last time out, just, Bale, as you say, was unleashed. Son back on the score sheet, where Son's not been quite there, is he, this season in terms of what he has been. Obviously, Spurs behind the scenes looking for a new manager, aren't they? Plenty of names there seems to be 4 or 5 linked today. Sarri's getting mentioned at the moment. Obviously, Scott Parker, it looks like he might be in the running as well. Conte's even been mentioned as well. So obviously a lot happening with Spurs, who's going to be the manager next season. But needs to just concentrate, as I say, on winning this one, then go and beat Wolves, Villa and Leicester. And you just never know. You just never know what's going to happen. And if they're going to keep Kane, you feel like they have to finish in the top 4 if they're going to stand any chance, because the talk of him going is increasing. And I would be surprised if he stayed for another year if they didn't have top 4 football, Champions League football, Europa League football, maybe not even. So depends on that. But yeah, they're really tight on this one. I just got a feeling for Tottenham, Leeds, not great deal to play for. As I say, they are, in terms of they want to finish in the top half, but they're not, it's a must-win game for Leeds. And Tottenham, you look at that front 4 that might play, Dele Alli might play again, did well, didn't he, last time out, Son, Kane and Bale, and I just think they might get there in the end. That's a really tight game, but 2-1 Tottenham.
Yeah, I've also gone for Tottenham. I've gone for my old favourite 3-2. I think this could be a really entertaining game. I think this game is going to be a completely different game to if Mourinho was still in charge of Tottenham, because we've seen Ryan Mason, it's taken the shackles off a little bit. Obviously, that the League Cup final against Man City was a really disappointing performance. They didn't really lay a glove on Man City. But aside from that, they've showed a lot more attacking intent against Southampton and against Sheffield United so far. And I think if they do that, we know Leeds are going to go toe-to-toe with them in that front as well. They've done it with the very best teams in the league this season. So I think that will suit Leeds quite well, and it will make for a really entertaining game. But as you say, the front 4 Tottenham could field. If Mason just says to them, all right, go out and attack, try and score as many goals as you can, simple as that, then I can see this being quite an entertaining game. Yeah, I've just gone for 3-2 Tottenham in that one. I think with their top 4 hopes, they're certainly not out of it, and you could use the same argument I'm about to make for Liverpool behind them. But are they going to, pick up 5 more points than Chelsea between now and the end of the season in the final 4 games of the season? Chelsea have got a difficult end to the season, but it's hard to see, isn't it? Them making up that gap. So if they do have a resurgence towards the end of the season, as you say, a relatively kind fixture list between now and the end of the season, then it might just be too little too late, because Chelsea are looking so solid. You don't expect that they can drop that many points. 12 points left to fight for. Chelsea have got. Are they going to drop 5 in that time, and are Tottenham going to be able to fully capitalise? I doubt it. Obviously not completely out of the question, and we're both expecting them to pick up a win here. But games like this are games they could easily go and draw or even lose against Leeds. Same, you'd probably say for Aston Villa. And certainly Leicester away, final day of the season, you can see them dropping points there. So they need to be pretty perfect between now and the end of the season. Chelsea need to have a big drop off from what we've seen under Thomas Tuchel so far. And that's what makes it difficult to see them get in top 4. As you say, Leeds, brilliant season. If they can get top half, which they'll fancy their chances looking at that running, it would just be an incredible first season back in the Premier League. But we're both expecting Tottenham to win by 1 goal here. I've gone for 3-2. Matt has gone for 2-1. Saturday, 3 p.m. One of the most Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs you can imagine. Sheffield United versus Crystal Palace. Neither with much to fight for, really. Sheffield United already relegated. Crystal Palace 13th in the table. Sheffield United were on the end of that 4-0 Tottenham defeat last time out. Crystal Palace were beaten by Man City last time out to make it 3 consecutive defeats. Difficult run of fixtures in that time, it must be said. Chelsea, Leicester, and Man City. But, they don't have too much to fight for. They're not going to get relegated this season. Looking up the table, there's a 4-point gap to Wolves. But, top half is 10 points away. They're not going to get the top half. Difficult to know what to fight for. And we've mentioned it for a few weeks now with so many questions over the manager, so many players beyond the end of the season. It's difficult to know where their motivation is going to come from towards the end of the season. You'd expect them, obviously, to be motivated to do their best in every game. But, that extra 5-10%, which can make all the difference at this level, might just be lacking a little bit. Sheffield United firmly will have one eye on, or both eyes probably already on next season. So, I'm not expecting a classic from this one. I think it'll either be 1-0 either way, but what I've settled on in the end is the goalless draw.
Yeah, I thought you would. I've done the same, you're looking back at the last few games of these two sides. I think it's been 1-0 to either side in 4 of the last 6 games. So, the history, looking at the game as it is, you don't think it will be a classic. Looking at the facts as well, back it up. It's just not going to be. I don't think it was 2-0 early this season to Palace at Selhurst Park, but as you say, not a game that particularly you're going to look at and think, I don't think it's going to be, first on match of the day or anything like that. But, it could be wrong because we have seen some shocks this season. But yeah, Palace are an interesting one for me. Obviously, Sheffield United, as we know, as you say, it's all about next season going down. But Palace, I know I think Roy Hodgson's the bookie's favourite with Arteta to lose his job, the next manager to go in the Premier League, and you fancy he might go this summer and a fresh face come in and try new ideas. But I just think Palace are where they are in terms of, if you look at where they've finished since they came up to the Premier League, 11th, 10th, 15th, 14th, 11th, 12th, 14th, and I say they are what they are, aren't they? They are where they are in the table. I just don't see how they're ever going to become a top 10 club, moving forward. They haven't got the money to do that. It's a fashionable club, isn't it, Palace? London club. It is a good club, a passionate fan base, and they've got some good players. Obviously, Zaha being the standout one, but I'm very difficult to see where they go moving forward. How are they ever going to become a top 10 club? And they're going to get nowhere near as obviously the European positions, but you're talking about a top 10 challenging. Can they get some 10th place finishes and things like that? But it is difficult. And as you say, last time out against City, never really threatened to cause any sort of harm to soon to be champions. So it is, and as I say, it's not going to be a classic, I don't think. And I thought you would go goalless. I thought fortunately had to go the same. It's no more said than that. 0-0.
Will you permit me to change my answer then? I've got to make up a bit of ground.
Okay, yeah, you can change it.
I'll go 1-0 Crystal Palace.
Okay, yeah. No worries.
Could be 1-0 either way or goalless. I wouldn't be surprised goalless, but I've got to take a few risks. I'll go 1-0 Crystal Palace for that one. I see what you're saying about the sort of ceiling of their ambition as well. I mean, we've seen it with quite a few clubs in the past. Sort of be careful what you wish for. You're wishing for the next step forward, but you've got a greater level of consistency in the top flight than they've ever had in their history before. So maybe be content with that for a few more years. But we'll see how they go beyond next season. Obviously, very intriguing situation at Selhurst Park. You mentioned briefly there, soon-to-be champions Man City. That could happen this weekend with a really good-looking game against Chelsea. Obviously, these two will meet in the Champions League final at the very end of the season. So this will be a precursor to that, with obviously plenty riding on it as well. Man City, a victory will give them the title. Chelsea still in 4th place. They can't really afford many drop points. We mentioned earlier the chasing pack, will they make as much ground on Chelsea? West Ham are certainly much closer than Tottenham and Liverpool are. West Ham only 3 points behind Chelsea at the moment. So big game for Chelsea. Obviously, both coming into it off the back of huge results in midweek in the Champions League and really good performances, both of them as well. Man City beating PSG 2-0 and Chelsea beating Real Madrid by the same scoreline. So it's a big game. Both will be absolutely flying from those Champions League semi-finals. How do you see it going, Matt?
Yeah, really interesting one, isn't it? As you say, it's obviously being marked as the dress rehearsal for the Champions League, but as you say, in its own right, it's a big game. Of course, more so for Chelsea. Obviously, City are going to win the league. Whenever that comes, they're obviously going to get that. But Chelsea, as you say, I mean, getting to the Champions League final is fantastic, but you look at the other side, so they're able to lose the FA Cup final, lose the Champions League final, and drop out of the top four. They could easily finish sixth this season, but it's just, as you say, as you mentioned earlier, you just don't see. I mean, the game's coming up. City here, Arsenal at home. I know Arsenal have big problems, but Arsenal are still capable of pulling a result out the bag, and suddenly Chelsea lose the next two. I don't expect that to happen, but if it were to happen, you just never know what could happen. Things change so quickly, don't they, in football? And an unbelievable season could become a good season, but a disappointing finish in the end. So yeah, it's a big game. I think I was very surprised at how poor Real Madrid were, to be honest, against Chelsea. As good as I thought Chelsea were, and they were good, I thought Real Madrid were really poor, as poor as I've seen them for quite a while, and I've seen a lot of them over the last couple of seasons. They were really disappointing. PSG, I'd never really expected PSG to go to Man City and win, to be honest. I did expect Real Madrid to beat Chelsea, but you just never felt like PSG. I still think PSG's team is pretty average in terms of their standout players, apart from obviously, as we know, Mbappe, Neymar, etc. I still think that Marquinhos, Verratti, good players, but everyone else I don't think is a great team, and City were too strong on the night and obviously deserve to be there, as do Chelsea. But yeah, Chelsea's, as I mentioned there, Chelsea's running. It's got some huge games, haven't they? FA Cup final, Arsenal at home, as I say, Leicester away, home, in the Premier League, and Villa as well, away, tough games. City, obviously, you're going to have a say as well in what happens by Newcastle, don't they? And Everton, teams that have got plenty to fight for this season. So yeah, you expect there'll be changes, won't they, from the Champions League game? Both teams put a lot into that, but how many changes? You think City will make more than Chelsea? There'll be a lot of ins and outs for City. Chelsea, I think there'll be a couple, but he'll still have to, Werner he's a strange one, Timo Werner, isn't he? He does a lot of good things. He misses a lot of chances, but he's a threat. And Havertz has obviously come into his own after a tough season for long spells. So yeah, very, very interesting game. And I've probably sat on the fence, to be honest. I'd be very, very surprised if you hadn't gone the same, just gone 1-1 here.
I haven't gone the same. I've gone for Man City winning this one. I've gone 1-0.
Okay.
I'm not expecting too high scoring a game. I mean, we saw, I think, Man City's defence against PSG was exceptional. I think Man City to a man, I think, were excellent against PSG. To not even allow PSG, I know they didn't have Mbappe, but not even allow PSG a single shot on target. Superb. Ruben Diaz coming up with a titanic display at the back. And we know how good Chelsea's defence has been under Thomas Tuchel so far. So, I'm not expecting goals to go flying in. Obviously, both teams have got the players capable of scoring a lot of goals. But in this game, I'm just expecting a bit, quite a tight 1-0. I'm expecting Man City to get the job done. I think Pep Guardiola will want to get the job done as soon as possible. As you mentioned, it's going to happen. It's a case of when, not if. But I think he will want to get that. And then that takes all the pressure off, the games against Newcastle, Brighton and Everton at the end of the season. And he can rotate and rest players to make sure everyone he really wants for the Champions League final is fully fit, fully fresh, fully firing. So I think he will want to get that wrapped up. And, they've got to go into every game, even against Chelsea, as favourites. They've been so good throughout the course of the season, particularly, a bit of a slow start, but since then they've been absolutely exceptional. Defensively, they look more solid than probably ever any of their previous title wins. I think that's been the big difference this season. They haven't been flying quite as high in terms of goal scoring and attacking. They've obviously still got those world-class attackers. And Phil Foden's closing on that world-class category pretty quickly. He's been exceptional this season. But defensively is the big difference for them this season. 24 goals conceded all season, by far the best in the Premier League in a season where the goals have been flying in. Remember, I think 5 of those came in one game against Leicester as well. So, I think defensively and how solid they are throughout the whole team has been the big difference for them this season. And I could just see that being, again, the difference in a pretty low-scoring encounter. In this one, I've gone for 1-0 Man City. In this one, Matt's gone for a draw. 8:15 on Saturday, there's Liverpool versus Southampton. Liverpool 3 draws in a row across all competitions, including back-to-back ones in the Premier League. Really disappointing ones against Leeds and Newcastle. Obviously, were due to play Manchester United last weekend. That game got pulled off because of the fan protests at Old Trafford. That's now being rearranged for next week. So Liverpool have got that game in hand to come. But I mean, I think they would have preferred to play it next week. And it's been a bizarre season in terms of some areas of the season really congested, some areas of the season barely any games. I think Liverpool have had a 3-week break recently and now a 2-week break. So it's been quite bizarre on that front. But I mean, the simple fact of the matter is now they need to start winning games. I mentioned earlier, are Tottenham going to pick up 5 more points than Chelsea over the course of the rest of the season? If Liverpool do win this one against Southampton, that put them in a similar position that they need to pick up 4 more points than Chelsea over the final 4 games of the season. So, you know, it's really difficult for them. Time is certainly against them. One of those games is obviously that game at Old Trafford, which is a difficult one. Aside from that, it looks like a pretty kind end to the season for Liverpool. But as I say, I think they would have preferred to get that Old Trafford game out of the way rather than having this congested run they've got coming up now. For Southampton, really good draw against Leicester last time out. There was obviously parallels drawn between the last time they went down to 10 men against Leicester and went and lost 9-0 to how they fought this time round and got the 1-1 draw. So huge progress made there for Southampton, but they're one of those teams with not too much left to fight for this season. 3 defeats in a row prior to that Leicester draw, including one in the FA Cup semi-final, of course. But, you know, they're 10 points clear of safety with a game in hand. They're safe. They're not going to get relegated. So Liverpool has certainly got a lot more to fight for. That's been the case the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we mentioned in the build-up to what we thought was going to be the United-Liverpool game, how disappointing the Leeds and Newcastle draws, particularly the Newcastle draw, was, because Liverpool should have been clear and out of sight in that game a long time before Newcastle got the equaliser. But I am backing them to get this done now. I think they need to win. If they don't win this one, I think that's top 4 hopes. Dead and buried, to be honest. But yeah, I'm backing them to win 2-0.
2-0, yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think if they don't win this game, then it's completely over, isn't it? If not mathematically, but yeah, the break at this stage of the season is not ideal, is it? As you say, obviously Jurgen Klopp has been probably more vocal than a lot of managers about, you know, the volume of games. Perhaps not the volume, just the amount of midweek games there have been. You know, of course, obviously Champions League, Liverpool knocked out a little while ago now, wasn't it? Start of April, but yes, it's not ideal. They'd prefer to play, as you say, that United game last time out. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool won 15 games this season, 15 Premier League games, that's 33, and you got to go and win your next 5, haven't you? And hope that that's enough. But I expect Liverpool to win here. I've gone the same as you. I don't know if you want to change it. I'll tell you what, I'll go different because you know we are where we are. So I'll go 2-1 Southampton, 2-1 Liverpool. Sorry, because I was going to go that very close to going that. Yeah, Southampton. Obviously, Danny Ings still out. Like, he might be out for the season. It looks like he might return before the end of the season now. Obviously, Oro Romeo is training. I think he's training next week, so he might be back before the end of the season. But Bertrand might miss the end of the season. These are big players for Southampton, aren't they? And losing players like that, obviously, as you say, they're not going to go down this season. But it's been a real disappointment, isn't it, from where they were? They're just fallen off. The energy's gone. They're just everything they were good at the early stages of the season. Southampton, you know, pressing high up, moving the ball. They just haven't. It's just caught up with them all season. They've just not managed to do that. And as soon as you don't do those things that were giving them so much success, they've got some technical players, good technical players, but they're not technical players that are good enough to finish top 8 unless they're doing all the other things, all the work and the energy. So difficult for them. But Liverpool, as you say, if Liverpool were chasing one side above them, you know, you might give them a better chance. But the fact that, you know, Tottenham, West Ham, you know, West Ham are not going away, are they? West Ham, they picked up a big win last time out. They're still banging the race. If it was just one side, you just feel like Liverpool might sneak in there. But it's just a lot would have to happen. It could happen, of course. It can. The fact Liverpool have got that game in hand now is the same as Everton. You know, if you're talking about Everton being in it as well, so. Very, very tough, yeah. But I do expect Liverpool to win this game like you. I think they might have to suffer, and I'm not expecting it to be particularly comfortable. But yeah, I'll go 2-1 Liverpool.
All right, both going for Liverpool wins there. Sunday, 12 p.m, there's Wolves versus Brighton. Wolves 1-0 draw in the Black Country Derby against West Brom last time out. Pretty much condemned West Brom to relegation with that, which I'm sure they will be delighted about, the fan base. And Brighton beat Leeds 2-0 last time out. A really good result for them after some pretty poor form before that. had failed to even score in their previous 3 games before that. Lifted them all the way up to 14th place, 10 points clear of the relegation zone, so pretty much sealed their safety with 4 games to spare. So a big result for them that was. How do you see this one going against Wolves?
Yeah, I'm expecting a good game, to be honest here. On paper, I think it's two sides that, can obviously have underperformed this season. Certainly Wolves are probably not, maybe I wouldn't say Brighton have particularly underperformed, but they have, not picked up maybe as many points as they should have done. But as you say, they've been 14th now. They could easily finish 13th, and 13th sounds a lot better than, 16th, 17th. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, I've gone for goals here. I was looking at the previous meetings between the two sides earlier this season. It was 3-3. There was a 2-2 as well. The last 4 have been draws in the Premier League. So not much to separate them. But I have gone goals here. I think it will be 2-2. I think both sides, as we say, are not, Wolves, 5 points off Leeds at the moment. I don't really expect them. I think it'll be Leeds, Villa or Arsenal in ninth. I think Wolves will be keen to finish, the top of the best of the rest, if you like, in 12th. But Brighton, as we know, a very big win over Leeds last time out. I thought they were really, really good against Leeds. I thought Leeds would get something out of their game. I know Leeds had some injuries to some key players, but Welbeck on the score sheet, he's been good second half of the season, and you can change it. Graham Potter, there's a good squad there. I think they'll find it difficult to keep some of their better players this summer. Certainly, obviously Ben White keeps getting linked with a move away, but Bissouma as well is obviously the one, isn't he? That linked with City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United. He's really, really good, isn't he? I think Graham Potter said that he thinks he could play for any side in the world if he keeps developing in the coming years. And I think he's only 24, so he's certainly got time to do that. But yeah, Wolves, a lot of talented players. Obviously, a lot of problems this season, losing their best striker. Neto was obviously injured as well, so some tough period for Wolves. But it was just so important. If Wolves were to had a disaster season, end up getting relegated, it would have been an absolute disaster. But they're up in 12th, consolidated. They will play Premier League again next season, and they'll be keen to have a good summer. Obviously, attractive club and good, obviously, agents. Mendes working behind the scenes on bringing players in. So yeah, entertaining 2-2 here.
I've gone pretty much the opposite. I've gone for goalless in this one, 0-0. I think, they're among 2 of the lowest scorers in the league this season. 33 goals in 34 games for Wolves, 35 in 34 games for Brighton. Brighton only scored 2 in the last 4. Wolves only 3 in the last 4. I just can't really see goals. I think Brighton, I sort of see where you're coming from in terms of going for goals, because these are 2 teams who can create chances. It's just sticking the ball in the back of the net, which has been the problem for them. I think Brighton, as you mentioned, have picked up nowhere near as many points as they could have picked up for their performances and the sort of chances they created. There was that spell of 2 or 3 games earlier in the season where they just created chances for fun, but then went and lost both games. So yeah, I mean, they probably will create plenty of chances in here, but I just doubt their ability to actually put the ball in the back of the net at the end of these chances. Same with Wolves without Raul Jimenez. I think they've struggled so much without him in terms of goal scoring. So yeah, quite the opposite for you. I'm expecting a bit of a ball draw and a 0-0. I think Wolves games are usually tight. Brighton games are usually tighter than, as I say, they probably should be for the amount of chances and the football they play. So yeah, I've gone for goalless in this one. Matt's gone for a 2-2 draw. Interesting to see what happens in that one. Sunday, 2:05, we've got Aston Villa versus Manchester United. Manchester United, fresh from booking their place in the Europa League final despite the 3-2 defeat against Brom. Another really entertaining game that, and United had to survive a couple of scares, but Edison Cavani pretty much kept them at arm's length most of the time. Obviously, they were due to play Liverpool, as we mentioned, but their fans' protests against the Glazers put that off, which means they've got a hugely congested schedule coming up. They've got Villa on Sunday, then they've got Leicester 2 days after that, and then Liverpool 2 days after that. So hugely congested fixture schedule coming up, which means we'll probably see changes, especially after being in Europe in midweek as well. Aston Villa beat Everton last time out to move into the top half of the table. They're now 10th. How do you see this one going, Matt?
Yeah, really interesting. It's always one I look forward to. Obviously, when Villa were out the Premier League, one that you would look forward to when they're coming back. I just always I've been to a lot of Villa United games down the years, especially at Villa Park, and it's just such a good fixture. I don't know what it is. I do like Villa. I think they're a great Premier League club, aren't they? And they deserve to be at this level. And it's just it usually is an attractive game. United won 3-0 in the corresponding fixture last season, and have enjoyed this fixture. United down the years, I think they haven't lost this fixture since 2009. That was at Old Trafford, that one, and Villa Park has been very, very kind to United down the years. They do very much enjoy games there, and yes, as you say, there will be changes to the side. You know, the Europa League game against Roma, it was always going to be a weird one. I don't really like watching games like that, in the sense that obviously I'm delighted that United got through, but when it's so heavy in the first leg, it's always going to be, you know, open. And it was a good game, but there was a lot I didn't like about United. Certainly some of the defending wasn't good, but obviously Cavani was fantastic again, obviously desperately trying to keep him at the club. I don't think there's been a final decision yet. It looks like he was leaning one way now. It looks like he might be leaning towards staying, which would be excellent news. Obviously Fernandes was really good again. But yeah, you just think there will be changes. You say the fixtures coming up, it's a joke in terms of, you know, the Leicester, Liverpool, Fulham, Villa, Leicester, Liverpool in the short amount of time that's coming. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will have to use his squad. There's no point risking, you know, key players ahead of you. Obviously, they'll be safe in the top four, but not safe in second, and really will want to secure second. As I said last time out, so the difference between second and third, even saying it, is a lot, isn't it? Being the runners up rather than you don't get a trophy for finishing runners up, but it does give you more confidence. So they'll be keen to hold off Leicester to finish second, and Chelsea, you know, possibly, but it is all about that Europa League final now, you know, getting silverware, getting over the semi-final curse that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had above him. But yeah, that's obviously positive moving forward. Villa, I think Dean Smith's had his press conference this morning. They obviously was waiting on Grealish. He is still out. He said that he's back on the grass now, but this game will come too soon. So with Grealish, I'd probably give Villa more of a chance. But as I say, United's record at Villa Park down the years, you know, semi-finals at any in the Premier League is really, really good. And I just think Villa at the moment, as you say, the big win over Everton, the surprise win. I was surprised that they went and won there. But, you know, last time out at home, they were fortunate, weren't they, to get a point against West Brom. And United, as I say, will be full of confidence. Eventually, as I say, there'll be changes, some fresh players coming back in. And I just think United will have a little bit too much. I'm expecting a tight game in terms of the scoreline. Maybe I've made it sound like I'm going heavier United, but I do think it'll be tight. But I just think United's extra quality going forward will make the difference. I've gone 2-1 United.
Yeah, I've gone exactly the same. This one just screamed out 2-1 United for me. It's a scoreline Villa have had 3 times in the last 4 games, either 4 against. Yeah. Both teams have scored in Villa's last 5 games, so you know they are scoring goals, but they're also conceding them. United away, as we know, have been really good for the majority of the season. And yeah, it just looks like a United win. I think the only, you know, thing that could scupper that is this, you know, how many changes are we going to see? This fixture schedule coming up, as you say, looks like top 4 is pretty much secured. Not mathematically just yet, but it'd be a huge surprise and take a massive collapse for them to throw away top 4 now. So, you know, over these next 3 games, they're going to probably focus mainly on just getting their players through them without picking up any injuries, which might hurt their Europa League final chances. So it could be that Solskjaer doesn't place, you know, as much importance on actually winning these games as he might usually, just because the priority will be to get the players through them. Because as you say, it's a 4-game week. You don't really see that very often. I did an article after it was postponed and looked at the possible situations, and there weren't many chances to rearrange it, but I think a better one would have been to move the Liverpool West Brom game coming up, and then have the Liverpool United game on the 16th or 15th or something like that, and that seemed to work well. I'm not sure why they haven't done that, to be honest, but yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult one, and it's not good for player welfare. You mentioned Klopp's mentioned it quite a lot. And you know, that's about as extreme as it gets in this day and age with those 4 games in the space of a week. So yeah, as I say, I think Solskjaer's priority probably for that phase, with top 4 pretty much wrapped up, will be mainly to get his players through it in one piece and avoid any injuries. Having said that, as I've already mentioned, I am expecting them to go and win this one. Aston Villa, one of those sort of inconsistent teams mid-table, will be delighted with the season they've had. But difficult to know what to expect from them. They're more than capable of winning these games, as we've seen already earlier this season. But Man United's away form, they just seem to get the job done. They've only lost 4 games in the Premier League this season, which is the same amount as Man City. It's the draws that have undone them in terms of it's the draws that have undone them in the same as in terms of the title race. So they're a very hard team to beat, and I expect them to do enough to just grind out a victory here. Probably concede first and then come back and win away from home, as they have been doing so often this season. But yeah, 2-1 United for both of us in this one. 4:30 on Sunday, there's West Ham versus Everton. West Ham, one of those teams very much in the top four race. Everton, as we mentioned, not quite fully out of it yet, but that defeat at home to Aston Villa really, really hurt their chances, and anything other than a win in their probably final 5 games of the season would probably rule them out of it. West Ham in a much better position. They beat Burnley 2-1 last time out to bounce back from back-to-back defeats. Only 3 points behind Chelsea in 4th. Chelsea, as we've already mentioned, are away to Man City, so they'll be seeing this West Ham as a really good opportunity to pick up a victory, which could lift them probably not into the top 4 because of goal difference, but level on points with Chelsea again. Obviously, they'll know by the time they kick off what Chelsea have done, and if Chelsea have lost, then that chance will be there. But final 4 games of the season for West Ham at Everton, Brighton, West Brom and Southampton. They'll fancy their chance of picking up quite a few points there. And the real test for them, they've been so good throughout the course of the season, punched above their weight, exceeded all expectations. The test for them now is, can they keep that up for the final closing stages of the season? Because if they do, even if they miss out on top 4, they'll be desperate to get top 4, obviously, because they're so close now. But even if they miss out on top 4, it's been a really, really good season for them and something that they can build upon. This game is one of those difficult ones to call. Everton, I think that defeat to Villa last time out, well, just so, and you know, they've only won one of their last 7 Premier League games, is it? I think. So they've dropped a lot of points recently, and so to still be anywhere near the top 4 race and still win with the shout is a bit of a surprise. But I think that defeat to Aston Villa probably killed their hopes off, not mathematically, and if they do win their final 5 games of the season, then maybe they'd pick up enough points to close the gap. But I think that defeat to Aston Villa was probably one of the final nails in the coffin, and I think West Ham now have more to fight for. West Ham will certainly be more reliable and more consistent than Everton so far this season. So I've just gone for West Ham winning this one 2-1.
2-1, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I just think maybe I'm too kind to Everton sometimes. I do give them a lot of praise, and I do back them quite a lot to maybe not win, but certainly not get beat. But the stuffing was knocked out of them, wasn't it, against Villa last time out? And as you say, really good win over Arsenal before that, and just they are a very strange team, aren't they? Everton, you've been saying it for ages. They've got a lot of talent, but obviously a great manager. But it's almost like a mental thing, isn't it? They just can't seem to. You feel like this season, of all seasons, there was such a big opportunity, wasn't there, for them to push into the top 4. Obviously, as we say, they're not out of it, but we'll have to win, their next 5 games to stand any chance. West Ham, I mean, they're not going away, are they? Managed to get Antonio back, didn't they, for the Burnley game, and he come up for double, and such a big player for them. Declan Rice obviously still injured, but Antonio, such an important player, and came back at just the right time during a period of West Ham. The goals had just dried up for Lingard a touch. Other players were struggling to find the back of the net. And as you say, West Ham will probably have to win the next 4. You said that about a lot of teams, and this is a really, really big game, isn't it? You talk about there are some big games this weekend, but arguably one of the biggest, certainly in terms of, Everton's top 4 challenge could be ended. West Ham, a draw is what I've gone for. Draw is what neither team wants. I think, obviously, they'll rather go for the win than, and maybe risk losing in terms of, certainly Everton. I think Everton need to win more than West Ham, but yeah, I'm just struggling here. I think Everton are capable. West Ham's recent record over Everton is pretty good, to be fair. I think they only lost 3 of the last 10 against Everton in all competitions. Sorry, it's the other way round. Everton's record over West Ham is good. That's what I was saying in terms of, West Ham won earlier this season, though, didn't they? At Goodison Park, and Goodison Park's been a problem for Everton this season, isn't it? Their home form's been disappointing. Thomas Soucek scored early this season to decide the game, and as I say, Everton's record over West Ham it is a good one. But it's just this one I went back and forth. I did struggle on this one. I've just had to settle on a 1-1 though, which, as I say, is not great for either side in terms of certainly not for Everton in terms of what they're trying to do. But I still think West Ham might finish 5th this season. I think they'll just miss out top 4, but I think it'd be a great season for West Ham. Obviously, would bring them Europa League football as well, which would be fantastic. But just had to go 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, if you offered West Ham the chance of finishing above Tottenham, Liverpool and Arsenal at the start of the season, they would have bitten your hand off, wouldn't they? Yeah. All right, 1-1 for Matt in that one. 7 p.m, the final game on Sunday is Arsenal versus West Brom. Arsenal, I mean, what left to fight for this season? Such a disappointing performance, more than anything, really, against Villarreal. I think a lot of people doubted maybe their chance of getting through, but they didn't really even give it a go. They did hit the woodwork twice to Aubameyang, but I mean, it was such a disappointing performance. They needed to go more all out for it. And, European semi-final that you just have to win. You've got an away goal, a 1-0 win would have been enough for them in that game. So a really disappointing performance. And we said a couple of weeks ago, their season hinges on the Europa League now and success in it. So that's now obviously gone. They've got 4 games of their Premier League season left. They're sitting 9th at the moment, only 2 points above Leeds in 11th, so could easily, finish in the bottom half. Questions are being asked of Mikel Arteta now after that Europa League exit. So it's difficult to know really what they can do to salvage their season. If they go and win their final 4 games of the season, you'd probably still think maybe 8th is the ceiling of what they might finish at. But presuming the teams above them don't drop too many points between now and the end of the season. So, I mean, whatever way you slice it, whatever happens between now and the end of the season, it's been a really disappointing season for Arsenal. And they're playing the West Brom side, obviously being a disappointing season for them as well. 10 points adrift of safety now, with only 12 points left to play for. Their relegation could be confirmed this weekend. 1-1 draw against Wolves last time out was, as I mentioned earlier, probably the final nail in the coffin. But, the damage had been done a long time before that. There was a brief revival with those wins over Chelsea and Southampton, but defeat to Leicester, back-to-back draws against Villa and Wolves. Just, Allardyce is set for his first relegation as a manager, and I don't think there's any way around it now. It's a case of the inevitable, a case of when rather than if again. And as I say, it could happen this weekend. I'm actually expecting it to happen this weekend. I think Arsenal, this is a very kind fixture for them to bounce back from that Europa League semi-final. The biggest question mark in my mind is, how much can we trust Arsenal to go and do that? Obviously, on the basis of this season, you can't trust them too much. 13 defeats this season is so poor. And as I say, could still go and finish in the bottom half of the table, which would just make for a really, really poor season. But yeah, I am backing them to win this game. I've gone for 2-0 to Arsenal, but, whatever way you slice it, it's been such a poor season for them.
Yeah, dreadful, isn't it? I think obviously looking at the first no European football, aren't they? The first time in 25 years, 95, 96, last time they didn't play European football. That looks like it's going to be the case next season. And it's just, I mean, I mentioned it last week, didn't I? Talk about their finishes down the years, the criticism that Arsene Wenger got for finishing top 4. And it's just, you think about the great players they've had, the great goal scorers they've had down the years, and they've got one now in Aubameyang, but he's been unwell recently, his problems he's had. I just think, Arteta's future has to be questioned. I mean, I've said it for a while now, hasn't it? You talk about where they are in the table. You look at the 11 they put on the field against Villarreal. It's a lot of talent there. There's some really good players there, but I don't think the defence is quite good enough. They don't move. The transition's not great. They don't move the ball that quickly through the midfield, which all the great sides do in terms of moving it so quickly from front to back. I just don't think Arsenal do that. There's no real pattern to their play, and yeah, as I say, this is a nice game for them off the back of the Villarreal one, but moving forward for Arsenal, the manager, as I said earlier, I think Arteta is the favourite with a lot of bookmakers with Roy Hodgson to be the next manager to lose his job. But where do Arsenal go from there? Who are they going to give it to? But the managers, do they go for someone who's really experienced, like a Sarri, someone like that, or a Allegri, someone? But would they really take it? Depends how much money, I suppose, is on offer in the transfer market. But obviously, it looks like they're going to struggle to sign Odegaard. They've obviously managed. They've got some great young players that will help. Obviously, Thomas Partey is a good player, so got a lot of positives for Arsenal, and it is still a massive football club, and I think that's why it gets spoken about so much. The struggles they've had this season, obviously last season Premier League down in 8th was disappointing, and they look like they're going to finish lower this season. So yeah, really disappointing. As I say, West Brom, I think obviously the planning for next season now, you talk about the players they can they keep. Looks like Johnston, the goalkeeper's going to go, doesn't it? I know a lot of clubs like him. I was surprised if you go back to the Premier League. I think Kieran Gibbs has already agreed to need to go to Inter Miami. I think Pereira is obviously the one that they'll struggle to keep. He's been outstanding this season, 9 Premier League goals, which is fantastic. He was so good last season in the Championship. But they've got players, Robson Kanu. Grant's not really had a look in this season. Big money, wasn't he, signing? Diagna, can they keep him? Robinson. It'll be a good Championship club. Obviously, Maitland-Niles, Gallagher, etc. Lockaslu will go back to their parent clubs and then go elsewhere or stay there. So a lot of change at West Brom. They're going to go down, obviously, as you say, I think it's about to be this weekend. And yeah, unfortunately, I had to go the same as you, and I can't change it this time. It's 2-0 Arsenal.
2-0, yeah. I think with Arsenal, their position right now sort of reminds me a little bit of where Liverpool were 10 years ago with Hicks and Gillette in charge. Unpopular American owners languishing around, 8th. I think Liverpool finished a few times. To be fair, I think Jurgen Klopp's first season in charge of Liverpool Liverpool finished 8th. So there is a little bit of hope, but that wasn't a full season. Arteta's now had a full season and a half in charge of Arsenal. You'd expect him to have made more of a difference in that time. But yeah, I mean, if they are in a similar position to the Hicks and Gillette, it's a long way back from that, and it takes a lot of hard work and it takes a long-term vision. It's just, Arsenal in their position at the moment, you don't expect the next season to bounce back and finish in the top 4. It's a long road back for them, I think. And if this is the nadir for them, then it's a chance to rebuild a little bit, to build on the youth that they've got, the talented youngsters. But it is going to be a long road back for them. But we're both backing them to win this weekend, at least against West Brom, 2-0 apiece in that one. On Monday night, the final match of this game week, there's Fulham versus Burnley. We've also mentioned Fulham in passing there, and their survival hopes, which look increasingly bleak. 9 points from safety now, as I say, with only 12 points left to play for. A defeat to West London rivals Chelsea last time out. Burnley are one of the teams only 9 points clear of them, but that 9-point gap will be feeling very comfortable for Burnley. They'll consider themselves more or less safe, and obviously a win this weekend would guarantee their safety. They were beaten, as we mentioned, by West Ham last time out after taking the lead in that game, but quickly falling behind after that to that Mikel Antonio brace. It's another one I'm not expecting to be too much of a classic. I think Burnley, that 4-0 win over Wolves recently just came out of the blue a bit, didn't it? And not the sort of result you expect to see from Burnley. Other than that, they've lost 4 of their other last 5 games in the Premier League. So it's a pretty rare occasion for them to go and win a game like that. I am expecting them to go and win this game. I think Fulham, they had that revival at one point, but now they've just really tailed off since that win over Liverpool. I think they've only picked up 1 point in the Premier League, which is just a really poor run of form, and when they needed to start picking up victories. And it is, again, a matter of time. I think the 3 that go down will be settled potentially effectively even this weekend. So with a few games to spare. And unfortunately, Fulham look like they're going to be one of them. I think Burnley could potentially be the team to confirm their relegation. I've gone for 1-0 Burnley winning this one.
1-0, yeah, I've gone the other way. I've gone 1-0 Fulham. Maybe more in hope than expectation. Fulham worst home record in the league this season, they 10 points. Burnley have been, relatively speaking, okay on the road. 5 wins, 3 draws, which is, not too bad for considering where they are on the table. I just think Fulham, it's more, as you say, Fulham are going to go down, aren't they? If they win this game. It's just moving forward for Fulham, isn't it? They've obviously got a lot of loan players at the club. A lot of them are going to go. Not be able to keep, Areola, Anderson, players like that have been really good this season. And I do think Fulham are going to be a very attractive club, though, aren't they, in the Championship, where they are based, in the country. It's just a fashionable club, Fulham, isn't it, to play, great stadium. And I think they'll attract good players. And I expect Fulham and West Brom to be good next season in the Championship. I think Sheffield United will have a good go. It looks like it's about the teams that are in the Championship now that might not come up, playoffs, etc., and ones that have finished. So it's going to be a very competitive Championship next season. That looks like it's going to be a really interesting league. But it is a tough one. Fulham, Burnley have been inconsistent. That was the 4-0 win over Wolves, and then to lose to West Ham. West Ham side, as we say, are chasing top 4, so it's not a poor result. Burnley's next for Leeds, Liverpool, Sheffield United for Burnley rest of the season. Fulham, imagine they did do, Fulham go and win the next 4. It would be, what a story that would be. But you'd still relying on Newcastle to completely fall off, and I just can't see it. The games are there for Newcastle to, even if they lose against Leicester, I just can't see it. I can't see any way it happens. But the confidence, if they finish for 2 wins, Fulham, 2 wins from their 4. Obviously, he's got a good manager. Can they keep him? As I mentioned, been looking with the Tottenham job, and I think Scott Parker's he's onto something. I think I like the way he talks, and I like the way he sets his teams up. It's not quite happened this season, but he'll learn from that, and the players will as well. So, not too confident, but I've gone 1-0 Fulham.
1-0 Fulham. I've got 1-0 Burnley in that game. Okay, thank you, Matt, as ever. We will be back on Tuesday for a bonus edition of the midweek fixtures. I think there's 5 midweek fixtures which have been rearranged. Man United in action twice in that 2-day spell. There's also Chelsea versus Arsenal to look forward to. So a big round of midweek fixtures coming up, which we'll be predicting on Tuesday. So be sure to tune back in for that. You can find previews for all of these games and many more across Europe. There's the end of the seasons in many of the European leagues are looking fascinating. So be sure to check out our previews for that over on sportsmore.co.uk. You can subscribe to this on all the usual podcast channels and on YouTube to make sure you don't miss an episode. So we look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday.